I got through it regardless. I took care of my family. I got my shit together. I got my life together. I mapped out my goals and I got clear on who I am as an individual. And I promise you, that's one of the biggest things that you want to be proud of. So be your own motivator. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone's doing well. So I'm actually just off to seeing one of my properties and I thought I'd just kind of bring you along a little bit and just kind of chat about a few things that I think that will be really valuable as I've been kind of reflecting a lot lately on my journey and how things have gone. Firstly, big shout out to everybody that is, you know, working their arse off right now, especially in these crazy times that we're in, that it's kind of uncertain and people are wondering whether they're going to go back to their jobs and things like that. And I definitely know how that feels like. And I was kind of reflecting on my journey a little bit because it wasn't always like this. I even remember the times when I was a lot younger and I was around 19, 20 years old. And let's get this sunroof open. It is roasting today. I remember those times when things didn't always go so well for me and I wasn't really as switched on as what I was now. You know, I didn't have the mindset that I do have now because, you know, it takes time to build. So, you know, I know what it feels like to be in a situation where you're concerned about, you know, your financial future, all these kind of things, you know. So I commend people that are really putting in the work regardless of the situation. You've got family that rely on you and things like that. So it's really important. So keep doing what you're doing. You know, these are uncertain times, but this is where it's going to be testing us. But yeah, what I like to do a lot is reflect on my situation on a regular basis, and I do think not enough people do that. And I think it's a big factor that has put me in the position that I am today, purely because of the fact of we have to be our own. Not enough of us are our own best friend. And what I mean by that is that you've got to be your own motivator. You've got to be someone in a situation that, regardless of how things are playing out, regardless of how things are going in your life, you know, it's not always going to go smooth, and how are you going to deal with that? So for me, what I always like to do is recognize how far I've come. And this is something that I recommend to all of you, regardless of where you are in your situation in your life, how old you are, realizing where you are, looking at how far you've come, I think is one of the most important things. And I do this a lot. I even done this last night. So even just the sheer fact of when it's a nighttime, you're under the covers, you're going to sleep, it's literally almost habitual for me to think about, right, I'm so grateful that I'm in this position, that I've got a roof over my head, I'm in my dream home that I've now achieved. And I grew up from humble beginnings where I didn't get any handouts, nothing like that. I've worked my arse off for years and years and years. And I think what has pushed me through hurdles, countless hurdles, you know, doubts, people doubting you, people, you know, attacking you, people essentially putting you in a situation where financially they benefit from you. You know, I won't go into too much detail of it, but I've been in so many situations in which that, you know, I've been taken advantage of. I've learned so many lessons in life about people. And I think what has kept me going through all those hurdles when it's been those tough times is making sure that I've got a strong head and always recognize to myself that, well, look, you may not be in the position that you are or where you want to be right now, but the one thing that I can do is recognize how far I come. So it's almost like a conscious thought to me to realize, well, look, I've got a roof over my head, I've got this situation. Look, 6 months ago, you were here, and look at how far you are now. You've progressed further than where you was 6 months ago. And I think what this comes down to is just having this type of mindset that get rid of these deadlines and timelines of when you think that you should be this multi-millionaire or have these income streams or be this type of individual. It takes time. It's not going to happen on your schedule. It's not going to happen at the date that you set. I can assure you that. Now, don't get me wrong, there's been some goals that I've achieved earlier than what I thought, sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years before that I've set the goal, and I've done that. I've kind of put this 5-year plan out, if you like, and then within 2 years I've achieved it. That does happen. But for the majority of my goals, especially the bigger goals, it's taken another 2-3 years. And if I was to get disheartened, every time that happened, I don't know where I'd be. I'd be in a situation where I would have given up, because, you know, things don't don't manifest exactly how you want them to at that time. I would say the biggest advice and something for all of us to think about is that don't worry about the timeline of when it's going to happen. You know, time is the most precious commodity that we have, and it's important that we spend the time getting as clear as possible. I would argue that it's more important for you to really figure out what you want to do and spend more time. That was my sister. Just see my sister driving past. I could argue that it's more important that we spend the time figuring out exactly what makes us happy and what we want to do, because you're going to have hurdles and situations in your life regardless of whether you even love what you do. So if you know you're going to have them anyway, you may as well invest the time into figuring out, yes, I actually really enjoy this. Because in anything, you're not going to get there unless you're so passionate, obsessed. So for example, give a bit of context for those of you joining the channel for the first time. I started learning how to trade. I originally started off in the stock market in 2008. 2008 crash you're probably familiar with, regardless whether you're interested in kind of trading. And you know, I'm 29 years old now. It's pretty much about 12 years, something like that. I've been in this game for a long, long time. And what kept me going is that I didn't have these unrealistic timelines of when things were going to happen. I've always been a patient person, but I've always energetically been connected towards my goals. So I was thinking about this a lot. What is the difference? What is the difference between somebody who is successful and unsuccessful, especially in the trading space, because I then transitioned into foreign exchange? What's the difference? You know, other people set goals, other people do affirmations, they set these things in place, they have, you know, manageable steps how they're going to achieve their goals, but they still fail to achieve their goals. Why is that? It's because they've not done the internal framework. They've not worked on the internal side of it. And what we tend to do is that we think that we need a strategy and then that's it. We think we just need the information and that's it, but it goes much deeper than that. You need to do the internal framework and build these neural pathways. Energetically, you need pure intention behind what you're doing. So you can write out goals. You could write out a 10-page spread of the most specific detail of the goal that you want to achieve, and you won't get there if you're not energetically connected towards that. It's not actually, the reason why I write down goals is because something special, guys, about seeing your goals manifest when it's in your own handwriting. In your own handwriting. I'll do some episodes with some of my older journals, which you'll see in 2011, 2012, 2014, 13. Of writing down goals, and people often ask me, you know, it's okay for you because you're in a situation where you're successful, right? What about people that are not successful? It's easy to be positive when you are successful. What about when you're not? Well, you kind of look at my journals and look back and think, well, when I had nothing, when I was in a situation where financially I wasn't well off, I had no income streams whatsoever, living with my parents, I come from a council estate. I'm actually driving through near my area at the moment, and my language was still the same. My language still is exactly the same when I didn't have anything to having the abundance mindset and the mentality that I've built today. So you've got to be the person. This is why we have be, do, have. You have to become the person, and then you do the work, and then you have. So you've got to be the person before you get the manifestation of the goals that you want to achieve. I'm actually just driving through my area now. I used to walk these streets all the time, you know. I would literally just loop it. I remember even being, you know, 14, 15 years old when I first started my first business with a good friend of mine. We were selling organic toothbrushes, and we would literally just go around to these areas. This is just a council estate that I grew up in, and we would just hand out flyers. And it was just, you know, the entrepreneur in us to just go around and say, you know what, even at 15 years old, I had this in me, and I knew that, right, I can either live this. I was so fearful. Fear used to drive me a lot. I had so much fear of being average that it used to just push me forward no matter what. I used to play sports down there. There's just a field down there where I'd play football every single Saturday and Sunday. And here is the shops that I would be all the time with friends, and we would just go. That's my dentist as well. I think, well, it's not my dentist now, but that was the old one. But again, I remember just literally just being around here. You know, when I talk about, I know what it's like to be in your situation. I know what it's like to be in your situation because I've been here. When you know you're in an area where people don't make more than £30,000 a year. That's top end, or maybe 35 or 40, wherever it may be. right? So it's unusual to think about making 6 figures per year, let alone 6 figures per month and more than that, and creating multiple income streams. I never would have thought I would be in this position today. I always knew that I was destined for something great, but I think at that time, you can say all the things if you want to be a millionaire and you want to be these things, but it takes time to actually fully get connected and actually fully believe that. So don't be hard on yourself if you don't feel like a millionaire, or you're having those thoughts where you're kind of putting the energy out there, but your mind's telling you, yeah, but you're not going to do that. That voice is always going to be there. You got to learn to manage that stuff. Always going to be there. And that's the chimp. You know, for any of you who have not read a book, The Chimp Paradox by Dr. Steve Peters, I would highly, highly recommend that. Very, very important book. And yeah, it's been a big part of my life, learning how to manage those thoughts and managing those emotions, because the emotions are going to be there regardless. If you don't set yourself up for success to be able to deal with these scenarios, there'll be another scenario in your life, and then you think, oh, it'll be hurdle after hurdle. So it's more important to me personally that you get tough, get mentally tough with how you want to deal with these situations, because as you get older, there'll be different situations. People will disappoint you. You know, you'll have people in your inner circle that you thought that you trusted. They will stab you in the back. I've experienced it all, snaky behavior at the highest level. You know, so this is why for me, values, loyalty, trust, these things are very, very important to me. And when you find good people, you keep them close. So understand that your expectations of others, if you're a young entrepreneur right now and you're kind of finding your way through this period and things have changed, we're kind of living in this TikTok world now where the instant gratification is here a lot. This is the supermarket. I remember this supermarket here. This is Morrison's, right? This used to be Safeway. And let us know if you remember Safeway in the UK. For you guys in the UK, you'll know what that is. It was quite a few years ago. I remember that in here, we didn't have much money growing up, and even my parents till this day, you know, we've grown up from humble beginnings. There was a point in which that I was too young to fully remember, but my sister would tell me this all the time. And this is, I believe we always have these defining moments in our life where we think, do you know what, I'm gonna make this happen now. Enough is enough. I'm not letting my family go through this. I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna work my ass off. And I remember when my sister told me that I used to be in the pram, so she was old enough to remember. We'd go into Safeways and we would literally have £10, around £10 to spend. And we would go through, my mum would, you know, pick up pasta, rice, all these kind of, you know, carbohydrate stuff that you could just make loads of things in bulk, pastas and things like that. And if anything went over £10, we'd have to put things back. So if it went literally £10 with 32 pence, 32p, we're putting stuff back, putting beans back, whatever it may be. When I found that out, that my mum used to cry in that situation, used to cry because unfortunately when I was 5 years old, my dad had a stroke. And he got unwell, and he's still paralysed on the right side of his body at the moment. So we got put into a situation where we kind of was just living a fairly normal life. You know, it wasn't poverty or anything like that, and it literally just came down on us like a ton of bricks, and was in a tough situation. And that lasted for a good, I'd say 7 years of living like that, 7 years of struggle. And when you live like that, you learn how to be resourceful. You learn how to be tough. So I try to have as much empathy for the younger generation as possible, but it's really, really important that the reason why, you know, you hear a lot of these mentors talking about get rich quick, you know, get out of that mindset. They talk about that for a good reason, because you've not built the mental toughness of actually understanding what struggle actually means. Remember, you grow through struggle. So to avoid it is like avoiding the necessary ingredient of a successful person. You know, you hear a lot of these stories. 98% or 99% of successful stories, they went through something tough in their life to break through on the other side to become successful. And I think that's really, really important to understand. So when I think back to those moments and going full circle to what I meant about the supermarket, when my sister used to tell me that, I used to think, I remember that one moment when she first told me, I think I was around maybe 17, something like 16, 17 years old. I remember I was gobsmacked thinking, really, £10? You taking the piss? Essentially, £10. She's like, yeah. You know, if something went over, we'd put it back. It would be quite embarrassing. You know, you're in a queue, you put in stuff back. Imagine what that feels like when you're putting that kind of stuff back, and you're trying to, you know, take care of your kids and things like that. You know, it's tough. And people have much tougher situations than this in different countries. So it's no point having sympathy. That's not the point that I'm making. But something has to fuel you. There has to be defining moments in your life that you think enough is enough, and I'm going through. And I remember that was the moment I decided, no, I'm not having this anymore. No, this is not happening. I don't care whether it takes me 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. I will be successful, and I will put myself in a position for success, and I will take care of my family. And I've achieved that. I've achieved that very, very recently as well. I bought my mum and dad a house. It's getting adapted and put in a situation where, of course, it's right for my dad as well, being in a situation where he's not fully able. So there's a lot of adaptations that need to be made, but I'm very, very grateful that I've persisted. And I think what has helped me through all of that is just having a deep internal why. You have to have a strong why. And if you don't have that why, you'll fall over at the first hurdle. Or if things get a little bit tough, you'll complain, you'll point the finger, you'll blame. Listen, we have to change this level of thinking for any of you that want to be successful, whether you're in the younger generation or you're in my generation, so I'm 29 years old. Let's say you're 25, 26, you're trying to make your way. You have to learn to take full responsibility for your situation. Get rid of this mindset where you point the finger. I'm even in a situation where, being a mentor myself, I help a lot of people, I guide people to the best of my ability through my experience, and I still am in a situation where people will point the finger and they'll blame and they'll say things, they'll attack you. Even when people that you've changed their entire framework of their life, they will turn on you. So just understand this happens, but you can't take it personally, because again, it's not my responsibility for me as a human being, something that I've learned. I think there's a storm coming, but it's not my responsibility to teach people how to be grateful. It's not my responsibility to do that, but it is my responsibility as a duty, as a mentor and someone that I believe that I'm in a very good position to be able to guide people, is to never change my nature regardless. So the most crucial bit of advice that I would say that I've had to learn the hard way is never change your nature, no matter what. So if you're a good person and people disappoint you, that's fine. Don't worry about that. Focus on being true to yourself, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. You have to stand for something regardless of what happens in your life. And a story that I may have spoken about this before, but maybe not on this channel, is a story about the snake. So if you've ever heard the story about there's this snake, and the snake is caught in fire, and I think we're going to get a little bit wet here. Let's put the sunroof on. Still learning how to utilize all these gadgets, by the way. This car is unreal, by the way. I absolutely love this, and this is connected to such a powerful goal. If you haven't checked out my video on this matter, definitely go and check it out. But yeah, back to the story of the snake. I think this will provide a lot of value. So this snake is burning in this fire, and then this man sees the snake burning in the fire, and then he goes over to try and rescue the snake. So he's got like this stick, he's trying to get it out. And then as he's getting the snake out, of course it's very hot, it's in the fire, the snake kind of just, wiggles out the way and ends up biting the man. And as he bites the man falls back, and the snake goes back into the fire. And then the man again goes over to the snake and actually rescues it the second time, and he gets it out. And then this man comes over to him and says, "Are you crazy? Are you insane? Why did you save that snake? You just tried to save it, and it literally just bit you." And he said, "Listen, it's within the snake's nature to bite, and it's within my nature to help. Never change your nature." That hit me years ago to realize that, guess what, in life, sometimes people will really appreciate the stuff that you've done for them, and some people won't. But it's not my responsibility to teach people to do that. That's on them. That doesn't define me. So again, for those of you that are in a situation where maybe your friends don't support you, your family don't support you, or you've had friends that have stabbed you in the back, you've been in these situations, that's never going to stop. You're going to experience that in life. You need to wise up. You cannot be naive in this world. But the one thing that you can assure is that you don't change your nature regardless. So I've had that happen to me. To hundreds of people, they've done that to me, and I've changed their entire life, and they've still done that. So for me to do that, it takes a lot for me to then say, do you know what, regardless of that, I'm still going to be myself. I'm still going to be the person, because I'm the type of person where I go above and beyond for people regardless. I don't paint everybody with the same brush, because I've got experience. I understand that when people are coming from that position, they're coming from a position of insecurity. So I understand it, so I can only have empathy for that. Remember, nobody that is doing better than you will hate on you. So I understand that you will have hate in your life, but again, it normally comes from an insecurity, and you can experience this in family. I've not always had my family support me, but I understand it comes from a loving place, that they want the best for me. But sometimes only you know what is best for you. So I'm kind of reflecting on that at the moment. I'm just on my way to a property where actually it's the one I've done on this channel. The one that's fallen through so many times has finally been secured, which I'm excited to do a future episode on a creative way that I've actually secured this deal. So excited to share a future episode on that. So for those of you that are interested in the property side, you're gonna love this video, and it's about learning how to deal with opportunities and learning how to be creative in the moment. Because a lot of us, and this can actually go back to trading, sometimes what we do is that we sit on our losses and we don't cut our losses because we get emotionally invested on the expectation of what you think has to happen. So for example, let's say you're selling something, you're selling a currency. So for those of you that are in the trading space, you'll sell the currency, you've made a decision that you think this is going to sell off. So you're selling it, it keeps pulling back, you've got your risk, and then you keep moving your stop loss, because you've decided that, right, well, I think it's going to go down, and your ego's involved in it. When these things happen, you've got to learn how to manage your risk and cut your losses. And this is the same scenario that I've got in the property scenario right now, where I could, bury my head in the sand and realize, right, I'm just going to keep hoping that someone buys it. Or when this opportunity came up, how can I be creative? How can I leverage the situation and still benefit from it? So I'm very, very excited, because I think from a problem-solving perspective, this can teach us a lot, not just in property, but for those of you in life, how to recognize when there's an opportunity, be creative with that, and then use that as leverage. Very, very powerful. And I've learned that from various mentors in my life. The one thing that I've always been grateful with is the mentors that I've had. They have helped me so much in my life, and I'll always be grateful for that. And I'm lucky at around 20, 21 years old was when I would say some serious mentors started coming into my life, where I put myself out there. And the one thing I would say to you guys and girls, that where you might be seeking mentors, you might be someone that you really want a mentor, and you're wondering, oh Mark, how do I find a mentor? You have to put yourself out there. There was a period in my life, right, which I think it would be really, really good to go over the full story. There was a period in my life where, and this was after I started learning to trade. So I remember 18 years old, I took my first course in the stocks course. It was a 2-3 day intensive course in London. And even in then, things went well, didn't go well. I was still doing odd jobs in the background. I was still doing labouring and being in things in construction. But there was a period in my life that, because I'd already been made redundant as an engineer, I worked for a company called WSP Group. WSP Group is one of the biggest engineering companies in the UK. And working there as an apprentice engineer and working my way up to wanting to be a bridge engineer and all these kind of things, that was the pathway that I thought that I had set, because that's what I was involved in. Family have been involved in construction, architecture, that kind of stuff. And what I realized is that when I lost that opportunity, when I was made redundant, it hit me, because I was emotionally invested in, this is the pathway, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to work my way up, I'm going to be a principal engineer, I'm going to work on these big projects, and then guess what? Get made redundant. And I wasn't mentally tough enough to be able to deal with it. I don't know how fast, I should be going 60, I've just been overtaken by a Golf. I've got a V8, I should not be getting overtaken. But essentially, that taught me a lot, because I went into this kind of depressive state where it was self-pity, I was feeling sorry for myself, to the point I had to pick myself up. I actually went and I was signing on. I was on the job centre. And I was young. I wasn't psychologically mature enough. I was a little bit lost. I didn't know where I was going. I was still upset, living in the past of why my engineering pathway didn't play out. And I thought, realistic. And I remember, and I got really defensive, and I said, please, define to me, what does that mean? What does realistic mean? And she was just gobsmacked. The managers are standing right there. She was sitting down. I said, what does realistic mean? What does that mean to you? I said, tell me what I should put down. What's realistic? Because you clearly seem to know what that means to me. You clearly know exactly what I'm destined to do. So what should I put down? Should I put down labourer? Should I put down work in Tesco's? I was like, you clearly know how to define that. And again, I'm not saying that was the right attitude to have. I was insecure at that point, and I got defensive because I wasn't taking full ownership. She was just doing her job, saying, can you just put something down that's not ridiculous like an astronaut, because she knew maybe I was messing around. But I needed that wake-up call. And I remember walking out of that job centre that day and saying, I'm never coming back here again. I remember looking at it, and I never did. I never stepped foot in there ever again. I remember looking back and saying, I'm never going out of this again. And I got a job in the city, I put myself out there, I had any money that I had left over. I remember I went to Primark, got a cheap suit as just the best of my ability of what I could have. It was kind of baggy, it wasn't fitted, and I got myself into London, got around the industry, got involved in the financial sector, investment broker. I went involved in various different jobs. I worked all over London. Canary Wharf was the most important part of my journey, but I worked in different parts of London, and that taught me a lot. And I remember walking out of that and looking back and saying, I'm never putting up here ever again, ever. And I never did. I never walked back into that. And sometimes we need those moments in our life where we realize, look, enough is enough. Start taking responsibility, stop pointing the finger, stop blaming people, get your stuff together and take full responsibility of your life. And I would say that was when I started really mapping out my life. That was when I started mapping it out and thinking, hold on a minute. I am in control of the daily decisions that I make that push towards that. So even when I kind of didn't know nothing about goal setting, I just started writing things down. Just started writing things that I want to do, things that I want to have, even unconsciously, without even realizing these techniques that I learned. I was just doing that anyway. So for me, that was huge. That was huge to be able to do that and look back that I had that within me. And I think that was always the entrepreneurial side of me. Like I said, when I was younger, 15, 16 years old, you know, starting the organic business, selling organic toothbrushes, you know, I had that within me regardless. So I knew I could bring it out. I just went through periods of my life that were tough. And, you know, I had a very tough upbringing. I had to grow up very quickly because, like I said from the beginning, at 5 years old, my dad was in a position where I had to then take on that role alongside other siblings to then look after the family. So I had a very different upbringing where I had to miss school a lot. I wasn't at school a lot. I remember when I was in college, I had something like 9% attendance in college. 9% attendance, to the point that I used to get letters all the time saying you're not gonna pass, you're gonna get kicked out. Got the highest grade. Being dyslexic and struggling with all these assignments when I was still going to college one day a week and doing the things of engineering, got the distinction star, highest grade, 106 out of 108, got the highest grade, and I had to speak in front of all the colleges with the principal of the colleges. And I remember that even with 9% attendance, I still done the work. And to the point that I had to go in and do these extra exams because I was thinking, well, did someone else do your work? And I understand the thought process. How has this person just got pretty much 9% attendance that they were going to fail me? They weren't even going to let me because, of course, you have to have a certain amount of attendance. But they understood that my situation was kind of unique. That, as you can imagine, you know, not everyone's in a situation where I had to constantly. I couldn't go into college because I was in hospital with my dad. You know, I had to deal with very, very tough situations where I'd literally be getting ready for college and I'd be ringing the ambulance at the same time. So I couldn't go. You know, so when you deal with that kind of lifestyle on a regular basis, you don't have the same upbringing. But it teaches you how to be tough. And I realized that even regardless of my situation, I'm still going to get the work done. And I'm very proud of myself that I achieved that. And it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. You have to be your own best friend. You cannot be this person that's constantly focusing on the problem. What we tend to do is we tend to focus on, oh, I'm getting frustrated with this. Oh, my problem is this, my issue is this. Always leading with negativity and never leading with, this is how far I've come, this is what I don't know enough about, how do I get around the right people to know about that, and how do I improve on that? I promise you, when you energetically shift the mindset towards thinking in a more of a positive manner and even structuring the way that you talk to yourself, it's huge. I think it's the defining factor between success and not, how you talk to yourself, because it's those thousands of thoughts, 75,000 odd thoughts we have per day. 90% of those are going to be the same the next day. So if you don't change your thoughts, how are you going to change your life? Think about it for a moment. You're literally taking the same wiring, the same neural pathways, the same mindset to the next day, and 90% of those thoughts will be exactly the same. So what's that, 10%? So you're giving your 10% window to be successful every day. I highly recommend, wherever you are in life, you know, the thing that I want to finish with here, because I'm nearly at the development now, use this time to think, forget about all the fads, forget about the get rich quick, forget about, you know, this short-term thing, think bigger and think longer term, embrace the hurdles, manage your expectations of others, and just get things down on paper, get clear as possible with your why. Because like Jim Carrey said, an amazing thing about his dad wanted to be a comedian, but he got a safe job. And he said to him that you can fail at something that you don't want, so you may as well take a chance on something that you love. And that hit me massively. So what is the point when you can be made redundant? You can fail at something that you don't even want to do. So you may as well find something that empowers you, something that that you love to do, because that's how you're going to go through the hurdles. And I've always loved trading. I've always loved business, and I've always been obsessed with that healthy obsession. So you've got to find what you love doing, and that's how you're going to get there. So keep persisting. You know, I commend everybody in this situation, the crazy times that we're in, regardless, you know, you've got kids, you've got family, keep going through it, because you're going to thank yourself of what does the future look like for you, and how do you want to be in the next 3 months, and think about, do you know what, it was tough, but I got through it. Whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, I got through it regardless. I took care of my family, I got my shit together, I got my life together, I mapped out my goals, and I got clear on who I am as an individual. And I promise you, that's one of the biggest things that you want to be proud of. So be your own motivator. But guys and girls, I really hope you enjoyed kind of coming along with me. Went off on a massive tangent there, but I just wanted to share my thoughts. This is just, I wanted to give you guys and girls more of an insight into my journey, because people ask me all the time, you know, how have you got the success you have today? How have you got that mentality where you don't get frustrated at every single thing? How do you stay focused? Well, look, I'm not 100% motivated every day. Nobody is. I've just learned how to build a framework to manage my mindset, and you can do that too. You just got to work on it every single day. You've got more potential inside of you than what you realize. You just need to bring it out. And what I'm hoping that you get from this channel is as many tips as possible. Wow, this is an absolute beast. As many tips as possible where you can come back to the channel and say, yeah, I can apply that, because I'm all about practicality. And as a practical step, if you've not seen it already, 5 daily goals. I've done it in other videos, literally. You can do that today. Just decide 5 daily goals that you can do today that's going to push you towards a bigger goal. So just think about what the bigger goals are for you, and just do 5 small things that contribute towards that. Do that for 7 days as the 7-day challenge. For 7 days, just 5 goals, and let me know how you get on at the end of those 7 days. I can promise you this, you'll feel so inspired and empowered, and probably 70% clearer on what you actually want to do with your life. So let me know how you get on. Really hope you've enjoyed this episode. Let me know your #1 takeaways if you've resonated with this story whatsoever, any kind of struggles that you've been through. I'd love to know, and how you overcome them. I really want to connect with you guys and see any kind of other videos that you'd like me to cover, or maybe even do a full documentary on my story. Let me know. But hope you have an incredible weekend wherever you are in the world. I thank you for tuning in, the love and the support that you've shared on this channel. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See you guys.